Hi, it's Michelle from Movement Lesson. Thanks for watching. And to get all these lives, and we have the largest library of working with the human body. Subscribe, ding that bell, do all the groovy things YouTube wants you to do. What's nice about YouTube too is even if for Google searches it comes up. One of the best things is that when you like this video or videos that I do, then other parents get to see it because it's helpful, and that's what liking the video does. I don't need the ego trip, but that what feeds it. So if you can like or subscribe, by all means. And if you need our PDF on how to be a successful parent, or all my webinars and all my lives, like tomorrow I have a webinar on tummy time. We're going live on that. It's free. Most of my stuff when I introduce it is free, right? And then it might go into courses or whatever, or stays free. But again, just on this channel alone, you have the largest library of working with the human body, right? So anyway, let me explain where balance comes from. Now, a lot of people think that balance comes from your feet, or it comes from your nervous system, or right where your belly button is. No, we have to stop looking at adult-based balancing and where balancing really comes from. When your baby is born, right? This is the first time, as it comes through natural delivery, it is squeezed, right? And part of that squeezing is in that first rotation, and I'm sorry, I'm not doing this anatomically correct. I'm just doing this for here. Because again, I wish the skull moved, and it doesn't. It's just all hard plastic. But that squeeze, right, that creates that ability for cavitation. So what that means is this is the first time your skeletal bones are collecting oxygen in relationship or against gravity. So think of buoyancy. Like, let's say this little guy was just floating in the pond and we were just pushing down, right? That buoyancy comes up at 90 degrees, just like gravity comes down at 90 degrees. Right? So, but when a baby presents and comes out, right, this is the first time. So it's a squeeze, and then these bones collect oxygen. So sort of thinking about going a balloon from cold air into warm air. You get that swoosh. Well, this is what gives the baby power. We don't push our babies out. Our contractions help. They better be good for something. But it's part of that is the baby skull subluxes and it comes out. And this is a really wild version of a skull, right? But it comes out in all these pieces. Obviously, this is an adult skull. And it sort of, in that sense, bursts out and then it collects again. That's also how you get the palate strike and that first breath. Lungs should be lined with the foam, and it comes in, and that nitrogen, oxygen, carbons against, just like a champagne cork. And if you don't believe me, there's a great YouTube video on having a live MRI, live birth MRI, and you can see that shape and how it pulls out. And then you go into your spinal column articulates, but all your bones right at birth are meant to articulate against gravity by the collection and release of oxygen. So when I go to stand up, I don't necessarily use my muscles. Like if I go to stand up and you push all your force into your feet, you're not going to get up. That starts looking like cerebral palsy. You're a senior citizen, right? But we actually push down a little bit. We have this skeletal buoyancy that collects oxygen. Now, cord wrapped around the neck. You start introducing, let's say, some certain drugs, C-section, all that kind of thing, negates all these processes. They change the way that meant to do it, and they start to deviate movements. So that's why a child with possibly a C-section, or especially an emergency, or preemie underweight baby is going to have greater risk of having issues with balance from their little hands opening and closing, what people look at palmar and plantar. But again, they're learning how to create that movement against gravity. So that's why they're not meant to fist or, but it's not open and close. You should see your baby's hands kind of doing these kind of things, and they snuggle into you and they do all these things. This is the origin of our balance. So if your child is having issues with balance, or you're having issues with balance, first thing you look at is medication. Medication can change this. The second thing you look at is infections. Infections can change it because you're not used to what medications can do and infections can do. It changes the fluid dynamics in your body, right? And especially if it's, mucus is thick. It doesn't move. I mean, when it's infected, it's very thick versus what goes on. And that's why babies are meant to have very thin mucus. That's another part of the process, right? If I lean forward, I'm not drooling outside of my mouth. But if your baby is doing it, that's typical, because when they're moving all through space, almost like you're coating your wine glass and so forth, and you're looking for the sugars. That's what a baby's mucus is supposed to do, to give them now a vestibular input of where they are in space. But if you're a child or you have issues with balance, a lot of interactions with medications, again, can cause issues with balance, as well as an infection, because the pus and the infected mucus can be very thick. And so that's why you can't drive a car when you have the flu. You barely know where the bathroom closet is, because your fluid dynamics are so off. It's not that you're contagious, you just don't know how to move, right? So those are the first big things medically that you look at. But if you have issues with balance, look at the way you were born, and that can give you some details. And then you want to put back movement into the system that should have happened naturally through a natural childbirth. Now, because I say a natural childbirth, your child can still be born at 23 weeks. I'm looking at a full-term childbirth, 38 to 40 weeks, full active labor, coming out. That's optimal delivery, right? Just because you had natural childbirth and what you think is not a birth trauma, a premature baby, especially a micro preemie, when they just literally fallen out of you, is not going to create this process for balance. Thanks.